I'm a woman living with HIV, have been for 35 years, and I was 23 years of age, so I've been living with HIV more than half my life. And when I was initially diagnosed, I thought that I was going to die. I did not know another person living with HIV, living with AIDS at the time, besides my husband who had made his transition. I did not know of how to get myself engaged in care. I certainly didn't know of any support group for women or anything like that. I was very isolated and lived in denial for 3 years into my diagnosis, and then I finally started engaging into care. The first person I told was my father, and he looked at me very resolutely and he said, "You will not die of this." And so my father being my father and being my hero, it's like, okay, Daddy said I'm not gonna die, so I'm not gonna die. So later on in my journey, I got involved with a woman. So when I decided that I did not want to be in the relationship any longer, she said to me, "If I can't have you, no one else will." And she decided to out my status to our entire social community. And from that point, whenever I would go out socially, I would see people pointing their fingers and whispering. And so I have firsthand knowledge and experience of what some tremendous stigma feels like and looks like. Instead of going out socially, I started to isolate myself. I would just go to work and go home. And at one point, I really felt like I was dying from a broken heart. My oldest brother's wife, they had just had a baby, and she basically told me that she did not want me around her baby for fear that I would pass the virus on to their newborn infant. And so that further broke me. Amazingly enough, I found a church community that supported me, that basically, I like to say they loved me back to life. The pastor's wife felt like I was strong enough. She invited me to give my testimony, as they call it in the church. And up until 10 minutes before it was time for me to share my story, I was literally on the verge of an anxiety attack. I expected to be treated, again, like a pariah, but the exact opposite happened. These women came and they embraced me and they loved me and they cried with me and they held me. After we went back to our normal Sunday go to meeting church routine, this woman that was there would see me and she would say, "I love you." And I would say to her, "I love you too." And that's how church folk do. "I love you with the love of the Lord," that kind of thing. And she said, "No, I really love you." And she said, "One day I'm going to take you to lunch and I'm going to tell you why." That day came, and she told me, she said, after the retreat was over, she said I was going to kill myself. And she said because she had been dealing with some type of neurologic issue within her own body. And she said she had the note, she had the date set, and she had everything. She said, but the day that you shared your story with me, she said, I realized that there were people challenged by more things than I was. And so she said, you saved my life that day, and I thank you for it. And I just wept because I recognized that my own self-imposed stigma and shame almost prevented me from stepping into what I felt at that time was a purpose that I had. And I made a commitment that day that I would, whenever I had the opportunity, I would use my voice. I can't speak for all Black communities, but I know that in New Orleans, stigma continues to just run rampant. Many people who are living with HIV don't want other people to know. And when you are going into community-based organizations, or if you're going to a place to get your health care, you may know someone sitting at the desk, or they may know someone in your family, and someone tends to leak someone's visitation or someone's status, and it causes great trouble and great distress for people. And so that causes people to not want to go in to those places where they feel like they may be exposed. And so as a result, they drop out of care, or they don't engage in care. But I also believe that poverty, lack of housing, lack of healthy diets, all of those things that people can consider comorbidities that directly impact a person's quality of life, those things they're quite troubling. In the state of Louisiana, there is a law around HIV, and it's called intentional exposure law. And what that law means is that if someone does not inform someone of their status, and they are later, and that other person has found out that they are living with HIV, they can be charged with the intentional exposure law. To me, that is a clear barrier. That's a clear barrier to folks getting tested and knowing what their status is, because if a person does not know their status, then they cannot be charged with something that they do not know. You cannot prosecute and prevent at the same time. Again, it's bad public health policy. In this day and age, especially down south, the church is still a vital part of the community. It's still a vital part of many people's lives. And I think historically the Black church has been a safe haven for the Black communities because of the history or the legacy of racism. However, there seemed to have been a shift when HIV came on the scene, and folks started identifying it as a moral issue. You contracted this because of something you did, and you are being punished. And that message just seemed to have caught fire in the Black churches. And instead of, again, the Black church being a safe haven for folks who have this health-related issue, in some places they have found just the opposite. They have been pushed away, they have been ostracized, and they have been pushed underground. Positive Women's Network USA has a statement that says, "Nothing about us without us." And I believe that statement to be very true. Women need to be included more in different types of research. Women need to be invited more to the table to discuss all of those things that affect women's lives that are different from men's lives. Women's bodies are different than men's bodies. The medications affect our bodies differently than a man's body. And there are women who are mothers, or who are wanting to be mothers. All of those voices are very, very important to come to the table to assist in the ending of HIV epidemic.